one game away. Blow up. We're playing for something, man. We're playing for something. Just gotta mean something, you. They gotta mean something. Everything you got. Let's finish this.
Do it, fellas.
Let's go.
Let's do it, fellas.
Finish 2-3. 1, 2, 3. Finish.
Look, I'm through with this false persona. I can't do the Mr. Goody two-shoe shit any longer. Y'all check y'all hoes at the door while I'm putting it on her. Feel less responsible for my actions when I say I'm on the edge and these niggas just keep harassing. Killing people I love, man, this shit just a crime of passion. I know this isn't me, boy, stop asking me what didn't happen. I've been talking to my demons, y'all really thought I was capping. Now y'all scared cause you found that I'm really about all the action. Don't do the pretend shit, all of my problems for instance. Tugging the cheek over tension, nice that we can mention. I would say I moved on, but I know that shit hard to convince it. I sleep at ease when she pull up like a hardy convention. Never been harder to fit in. I know niggas, no pot to piss in. Needing assistance. Also, no niggas ran plays with pistons. Both all wisdom. I sleep in silence, knowing everything good with the profit. I checked the summary last month, made 11 deposits. Everything is big up on the boy, feel like Christopher Wallace. Strong arm the game, who gon' stop him? That nigga too brolic. I've had enough of they twisted logic, that shit retarded. I question everything. I made the wrong choice between a paddock or a wedding ring. Hope you catching everything. They get goosebumps when I spit like when a net is seen.
Winning has a price. And leadership has a price. So I pull people along when they didn't want to be pulled. I challenge people when they don't want to be challenged.
Welcome back to another episode of Kicking It with Saint. Yo, I appreciate you for pulling up. I appreciate you for clicking the video, yo. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I appreciate the support, the subscribers, all that. We're here to talk about the NFL 2022-23 championship round. You got the Cincinnati Bengals headed to Kansas City to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, which is a rematch from last year. Same place, same venue. And then on the other side, in the NFC, you got the San Francisco 49ers headed to Philly to take on the Philadelphia Eagles. We got a great Sunday ahead of us. We got a phenomenal Sunday ahead of us. Excuse me. Yo, for some reason, I didn't realize a Monday night football game wasn't happening this week until like Monday hit. I was like, why would it be a Monday night football game tonight? So, a little bit slow to the draw on that one. But, yo, how's everybody's day going, man? It's been raining a lot where I'm at. I don't mind, but, I hate mud. I had to wear boots today. It's an interesting thing. But, yo, I was looking at, it must be nice to be Stephen A. Smith, man. I be looking at Stephen A. Smith sometimes, and I'm seeing how hard he go on these Cowboys, man. I really don't get this fascination with going as hard on the Cowboys as people do. It must be nice to be able to make a pretty good living off of going so hard at the Cowboys. I saw a comment under a video. I was watching a Chiseled Adonis video, and I saw somebody in the comment section say the Cowboys deserved everything they get. And that's just such a term or phrase that's thrown around so loosely nowadays. I'm starting to think people don't really understand the true meaning of that term or that phrase when you say it. But what's confusing me is how do you feel like they deserve the ridicule and just because they fans, you feel overhype them or hype them up too much, which is what every fan of a team is supposed to do. But I'm very confused as to how do you think the Cowboy players work less hard than any other team? Do you think their players are not deserving because you don't like them or something? Like, I'm very confused by this term or this phrase, they deserve everything that they getting after they lose. Like, did they cheat? Like, I'm very confused. But nonetheless, another thing that's very confusing to me is I was watching Around the NFL the other night, and I heard Dan Hansis say, they basically, they praised they praised Joe Burrow and whatnot. But then when they got to the Philadelphia Eagles, he made a comment. It's a very irritating comment because I heard this comment so many different times that wasn't really impressed with Jalen. Not even necessarily impressed, but he didn't feel like it was Jalen Hurts as much as it's the team. It's a great team around them. And that's just a very ignorant statement that I continue to hear because I never hear people challenge Joe Burrow on that same exact thing. I never hear it. And I can only imagine if Jalen Hurts walked around as cocky and talk as cocky as Joe Burrow, which I got no problem with. But I know what would happen if he walked around with the same attitude as a Joe Burrow. See, Joe Burrow is allowed to be cocky. And nobody get to question if it's Joe Burrow, if it's the talent around him, because people talk as if that's not a talented Bengals team. This is the reason I picked the Bengals to beat the Bills last week. It's the reason midway through the season I told people this is probably the best team in football as far as offensive skill positions. Like, the talent on this team defensively and offensively is insane. For some reason, people are allowed to just focus on Eli Apple and act as if that's the entirety of their defense. And you get to focus on Joe Burrow and act like he is the entirety of the offense. The Bengals have 3 number 1 receivers: Chase, Boyd, Higgins. They all run great routes. They all are phenomenal at getting separation at the end of a route and breaking out of a route. They all catch with their hands. They are all hands catching receivers. They are all big bodied receivers, meaning they got height on them so they can go up in high point footballs. They can all run after the catch. He got 2 great running backs, but specifically, he has a phenomenal running back in Joe Mixon. The defense is on another level. Lou Amarino, and I'm almost certain I just pronounced that man's name wrong, should probably be up for a head coaching job. Now, you know I don't support defensive coordinators getting head coaching jobs. However, if it was 2 defensive coordinators who I really think should be up for head coach, it would be Lou Amarino and a divide between Leslie Frazier with the Bills and Dan Quinn with the Cowboys. But Lou Amarino has not getting enough credit, him or that defense. They got great pass rushers in Hendrickson. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not remember all their names off the top of my head, but just go look at the roster. That's a great roster. Jesse Bates, that is a great roster. And for some reason, people act as if that is a terrible roster just because the offensive line give up sacks. It's a lot of reasons as to why this offensive line give up the sacks they give up. But instead of focusing on that, I hear people talk about Jalen Hurts only good because of all the talent around him. But I'm never hearing that when it comes to a Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. You never hear that. So I made a comment under the video that it's so tiring, basically, hearing black quarterbacks be held to this ridiculous standard of, oh, it's not Jalen Hurts, it's the talent around him. But then a white quarterback with this type of talent around him is him. It's got to be him. It's not that type of talent around him. When each and every single one of those 3 receivers could go out right now and make top receiver money. Each and every one of them could go get a top contract on the market as a receiver. All of them could break the bank as a number 1 receiver and get paid like number 1 receivers. Every single one. Even T. Higgins. T. Higgins is a number 1 receiver. The only reason you don't think he is because he played behind 2 other number 1 receivers. Because Boyd and Chase are unquestionable number 1 receivers. But if you watch the Bengals enough, you would know T. Higgins is a dog. That is not just a dog. That's a number 1 receiver who is masquerading around as a number 3 receiver. Telling you right now, all 3 of them could go make top dollar. Joe Mixon is a top 5 running back in the NFL. At worst, he is a top 10. Samaje Perine is a top 5 backup running back in the NFL. And who knows where he would finish if you actually ranked him amongst all the running backs. Sure, they got holes in the offensive line. But you name another team with this type of weaponry. Oh, the Eagles. But except for not just the Eagles. The Eagles got that type of talent. The Dolphins got that type of talent. The 49ers got that type of talent. But for some reason, I don't hear you holding Brock Purdy to that same standard. Tua is an interesting case because he always hurt and nobody believed in Tua. Well, no, people always consistently down in Tua. But very interesting how, and as soon as Tua had success, it was, oh, it's the weapons. Look at the weapons around Tua. So it's the same deal. One dude in it. Now, you know, when you drop a comment like that, a whole bunch of, and this is not every white dude. I'm not generalizing white dudes, but this is a big portion, a small portion of white dudes love to go into these type of comments because they get to look at the world from a very privileged point of view. Whatever they deem is not something, they don't like their logic or their reality to be challenged. So they get to watch things from a very privileged point of view. Factual things they get to blur out and act and laugh off and put their own opinion into things and turn their opinion into fact and turn a fact into a joke. It's a ridiculous reality, but it's a privileged reality that they can live in. And so you knew it was going to be a lot of ignorant comments under my things. They get to change the subject. That's something they do. We saw them do that with Colin Kaepernick. He told you that he specifically stated what this was about. The injustices in America of black people being killed by the cops. White men turned that into he ain't standing for the national anthem. He disrespecting the flag. So we've seen this happen on multiple occasions. You got dudes in the comments saying some of the most ridiculous shit to me. And I think it's always funny when, that specific type of white dude who hate his reality be challenged, he can start calling me weird, stupid, dumb, all these other type of ridiculous names, and try to change the subject. But all I'm presenting is factual statements. It's a very interesting thing that they are allowed to do. I don't think they should be, but they're not challenged on it as much as they should be, which is why they get to live in this bubbled, white privileged reality. And like I said, it's not all white people who do this, but it's a good little portion of these white dudes who do this in the sports section of life. And so one of the dudes in the comment section, I'm not going to go through all the ridiculous comments, but one of the dudes in the comment section was like, well, bro, you can't argue that Joe Burrow is just that guy. He don't won at every level, bro. Jalen Hurts ain't won at every level. And I said, this is clearly what I'm talking about when I say fans should not speak on everything, especially when you don't watch but one thing. Because Jalen Hurts has won on every level. Jalen Hurts was a more winning quarterback in college than Joe Burrow. He won a national championship. Now, I responded with all the factual things that Jalen Hurts done. And I even said Jalen Hurts took a team to the playoffs last year in his first full year as a starter with nowhere near the talent on his team that Joe Burrow had this year. And people were still dogging Jalen Hurts. Somehow people act as if Joe Burrow dragging that same type of untalented roster. And now that he got talent on his roster, Jalen Hurts is being held against him. This dude snapped. Start calling me all type of names and all this type of shit. And I just think that's an interesting reality that white males can live in when you see blatant buffoonery like that. It's no different to me than how you see so many excuses. And Lord knows I hate having to talk down on my boy Josh Allen, because y'all know I fuck with Josh. But it's the same way I see people dogging Dak Prescott right now, but giving Josh Allen a pass. Now, granted, I'm somebody who is very firm in my belief that quarterbacks should not be held to this ridiculous Super Bowl standard. I hate it when people say, well, he ain't won a Super Bowl. Well, mind you, they only really do that to Lamar Jackson nowadays, where it's like, oh, well, Lamar ain't got no Super Bowl, so why we check? But saying Joe Burrow or Dak or Lamar or Herbert aren't great quarterbacks because they haven't won a Super Bowl, to me is just absolute insanity and stupidity, to be completely honest with you, because that is a team award. Joe Burrow, I know that it's a lot of white men in the media that's pushing this narrative. Colin Cowherd, in the media pushing this narrative that it's just Joe Burrow. Skip, it's just Joe Burrow. But I promise you, if you look at that team, it's not. It is not just Joe Burrow. It's just the reality. I know it's some Joe Burrow fans out there that hate that I said that, because they even know that it ain't just Joe Burrow. But it is what it is. That is a great Bengals team. That is why that team has gotten to where they've gotten to the last 2 years. Yes, it is great to have Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow is a top 5 quarterback. But that is not a roster depleted of talent. That is one of the most talented rosters in the league. So with that being said, let's get into these games, man. Sunday, the early game. And I don't know why this is the early game. Like, I really feel like this should be the night game. I strongly feel as though this should be the night game. But the early game that come on at 3 o'clock is the Bengals are headed to Cincinnati. The Bengals are headed to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. I am praying that Pat McGoat is like 80%, bro. Because I'm taking the Chiefs. I understand that I done talked up the Bengals, and I told you I was going to pick the Bengals last week, but that's exactly why I told you, if you watch that show, do not take this as my picks. This is just me foreshadowing, doing a lot of outward thinking right now. That was not my actual picks. Now, I might make the same pick as one of those things that I said, but that wasn't my picks. That was just me outward thinking. My pick in this game, after having a couple days to sit on it, I'm not banking on against my boy Pat McGowan. I don't care about. Well, I do care. Listen, the Cincinnati Bengals are an unbelievably talented team. I done seen Pat Mahomes beat unbelievably talented teams. If Pat Mahomes go out there and decide to have a Pat McGoat type of game, I don't care how good Joe Burrow is with those weapons. I don't care how good the defense is. Pat McGoat is going to win. I done seen him have to rise to the occasions more than once and be greater than the sum of his parts. I done seen him have to be the tide to lift all boats. And I believe Sunday he is going to do it again. He hear the chatter. He hear the old Joe Burrow, the best quarterback in the NFL. Could you imagine what Pat Mahomes would do if he had Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins lined up and he was throwing them the ball? The man led the league in touchdowns with 41 and threw for what, 5,000 something yards this year? He throwing for 8,000 yards, bro. If you give him them 3 receivers, he might throw for 80 touchdowns with them dudes. This is what I'm saying. When you look at the game from a certain angle, and listen, you don't have to watch the game from the angle that I watch it at, but from the way I watch the game, it's just certain people. Pat Mahomes, to me, is a guy who I can clearly see is a generational talent. Lamar Jackson is a dude who I can clearly see is a generational talent. Because I see Lamar doing what he's doing without the talent around him that most of these, that all these franchise quarterbacks have around them. I knew what Pat Mahomes was going to do when he lost Tyreek Hill. I never doubted it. Because you take a certain, because I understood, listen, it was people out there who thought Pat was going to take a step back. I didn't think Pat was going to take a step back. I thought the offensive scheme was going to take a step back, because when you lose a player like that and you don't immediately replace him, that's a problem, because Tyreek Hill ain't just a regular receiver. He is a generational receiver. But I knew Pat wasn't going to fall off. I knew he would be able to adjust his game, because that is a generational talent. You can see it if you watch him play. To me, Joe Burrow is a great talent. Hey, I'm going to have to start thinking, is he generational if he can get to another Super Bowl? But I truly believe that this is the one the Chiefs finally get it done. I don't like the Chiefs defense. I really don't. But I said it for years. Or at least I've been saying it since I got on this on YouTube. You don't have to have a championship caliber defense to have a championship caliber defense. Your defense don't have to be great all year. They have to be great in moments. They have to step up big in spots. They need to shine through in big. The Cowboys had a phenomenal defensive game last week. But some would argue in key situations they couldn't make the play. The Chiefs defense seemed to make the play in key situations. 3 plays, 2 turnovers in that Jaguars game. This is a battle-tested defense. Now, so is the Cincinnati Bengals. You could look at the Ravens game that they played in that first round and look at the turnover that they had to make a key play in a key situation. So I'm not challenging none of that. I believe Cincinnati is the most talented roster in football, but I just believe Pat Mahomes in this game will find a way to be greater than and be the best quarterback in football and the generational quarterback that we know he is. You see, if Joe Burrow have a great game, it will be hard. If I'm talking about if just Joe Burrow individually is out there balling, then it's going to be a tough game because he got 3 number 1 receivers running around. And the funny thing about the Bengals is if they want to run the ball with Joe Mixon, they could. And I don't think the Chiefs defense is impenetrable or nothing like that. The Chiefs defense is going to be banking on being able to make it. Now, the Chiefs had a phenomenal game last week, I thought. When Pat went down, they was able to hold the thing together. I believe they can put together another type of performance like that. It's a lot going into this. This is turning into a rivalry. I think it already is a rivalry. I think the Chiefs feel that they can't. You done lost to this team twice now on your own field. And the only one that really matters is the one where they beat you last year in the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl. You can't let that happen again. I am banking on Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Bieniemy, Reed, all these dudes Chris Jones. I expect him to finally get a playoff sack. I believe that this will be the best Chiefs defensive game plan, and I think this will be the best Chiefs game we see all season. I think they'll have a better game this game than they have in the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are going to put together. And when I say they best game, I don't necessarily mean they finna blow out, because this ain't about to be no blowout. I believe this will be a nip and tuck game. I do think it's going to end up being a little bit more high scoring than people think. I think they're going to both touch 30 plus points. But I do believe Pat Mahomes and them boys is going to be good. Because I thought Pat Mahomes and them boys had it going against the Jags until he got hurt. If Pat Mahomes is at 80%, now if Pat Mahomes come into this game at 50%, I mean, this shit's up in smoke. You ain't beating the Bengals with a 50% Pat Mahomes. But if Pat Mahomes come into this game 75, 80%, it's a go. It's a go. I'm willing to die on the hill. I'm taking the Chiefs in that matchup. And now for the Philadelphia Eagles at home in the NFC Championship game, taking on the San Francisco 49ers. It felt like these two teams was always headed here. I said it a couple weeks ago, a month ago so, that these were the two teams I expected to be in the NFC Championship game. To me, it was very clear these was the two best teams in football, in the NFC at least. I know I said that I think that the most talented roster in football is the Bengals, but it's only slightly. Because I think the very close behind them is the Eagles. Because what the Eagles lack at the receiving position that the Bengals have, they definitely make up for with that offensive line. That, to me, is probably the best offensive line in football. What's interesting is the best offense, some of the best offensive lines in football, the Bengals will have to play against if they make to the Super Bowl, or even the Chiefs, because the Eagles have a phenomenal offensive line. The 49ers have a phenomenal offensive line. The Cowboys had a phenomenal offensive line. So it was very funny to me that the three best NFC teams, the Cowboys, the Eagles, the 49ers, very complete teams. It's very what happened is very highly to me based on the quarterback play in these situations. But that's specifically because if every other part of the team do their job, then it should just come down to how well does my quarterback play in this type of game. And I do think that's what it's going to come down to. And I have more faith in Jalen Hurts. I'm just telling you right now. I know people going to be, man, you biased. You didn't talk about how you like Jalen Hurts, how that should go. I understand all that. But I fuck with Brock Purdy. I like how Brock Purdy done handled this situation. I done seen Kyle Shanahan have to play with backups before, and they not handle the situations that he needed them to handle the way they should be handled. And Brock Purdy done that. I believe, though, I saw how Brock Purdy done played in these first two games. And he done made some great plays, but he also done looked average at times. I believe the Philadelphia Eagles will be the best defense he faces. It was tough for them to have to defend the Cowboys defense last week, but now they go up against the best pass rush in the football in the NFL. I just believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are on another level. And when you have to go to Philadelphia and play at the Link with that crowd, I just think they can get going so quick. And with the offense that they can put on the field. See, I believe that the 49ers' weakest part of their defense is the secondary. And while the best part of their defense is the pass rush, it's going to be tough to pass rush Jalen Hurts for a couple reasons. Jalen Hurts can move around. Jalen Hurts got pretty decent pocket awareness also. And then that offensive line. Dickerson, Johnson, Kelsey. This is just going to be one of the toughest games that Nick Bosa and those boys have. I believe that the great equalizer in this game will be because of how unbelievable the Eagles offensive line will play. I think they'll give Hurts way more time to make plays. Not to mention, because of how bad I think, not bad necessarily, but because I think the part that's lacking for the 49ers is the secondary, I believe Brown and Smith and Goddard will be a completely different beast that they done faced. I don't think, as much as I like, what's my man's name for the Cowboys? I can't even remember my man's name right now. As much as I like the Cowboys tight end and I like CeeDee Lamb, that core is not Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown. To me, this is a way better core than they about to face than what they just faced with the Eagles. Plus, they got Miles Sanders playing, and they got a lot of good backup running backs playing. I believe, and I personally think Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. That's no disrespect to Dak Prescott. To me, the Eagles are the true final boss of the NFC. I look at the Eagles as a better all-around team than the 49ers. As much as I like Kyle Shanahan, I love Kyle Shanahan the way I talk about him, I truly believe that the Eagles are the better team. I actually think that the Eagles can beat every single team. I truly believe while the best roster in the NFL is definitely, to me, slightly the Cincinnati Bengals, for a good portion of it being, and I might not even think that towards the end of this video, to be completely honest with you, because as much as great as those three weapons are, and they make a big difference when you have a talent like Joe Burrow at quarterback, because I think Joe Burrow top 5 quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts is great. I don't think he's better than Joe Burrow. But as great as because the difference now, I might get the Eagles the edge. Because the Eagles pass rush, bro, I got to think about how individual talent, because the Eagles, one of the biggest successes of the Eagles defense is the fact that they got so many great pass rushes that they can just continuously switch them in like they did before. But the Eagles had 4 dudes get at least 11 sacks this year, bro. That's insane. Hassan Reddick done been on like 3 different teams and was good on every single one of those teams. Balling out again this year. Still got Brandon Cooks balling out. Still got London Fletcher balling out. Jason Kelce, mind you, the way if my predictions work out, we're gonna see brother versus brother in the Super Bowl. Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce. But Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson done won a Super Bowl with the Eagles before. Dallas Goedert done been into the Super Bowl and won it with the Eagles before. So you got dudes who done been there, done that. Now, obviously, you got the same thing over there with the 49ers, but I'm listen, maybe it is my bias, but I'm feeling the Philadelphia Eagles, man. I've been riding with them all season. I was riding with them last season. I had to pick against them last season against the Bucks, because I knew they wasn't ready for that yet. But they did exactly what they were supposed to do in the offseason. And I'm picking the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to be honest with you. This game could go 2 ways. I'm going to say it'll be a close game just because out of respect for the 49ers. But I would not be shocked if this ended up being a blowout, because I do believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in football, as far as they might not got the best roster compared to the Bengals at certain areas, even though you could make an argument they do. I just think they a better coached team. I like their offensive game plan more. They don't have to just rely on the receivers going up the field. They can run the ball great, and which they do. They ran for about 280 something yards last week, and they throw the ball great. They are an efficient team. They don't turn the ball over. They can pass rush the quarterback 4 quarters. I just love this Philadelphia Eagles team, man. And what they lack as far as Joe Burrow and Pat Mahomes being greater quarterbacks at the moment than a Jalen Hurts, they make up for with these other areas on their team. Elizabeth. Jalen Hurts may not be as great as Pat Mahomes or Joe Burrow individually to people. And that's cool. I agree. But he got a better offensive line than both of them. And that offensive line give him the time to sit back and make plays. You see what Brock Purdy over there doing. Let Jalen Hurts have time to stand back in the pocket, go through his progressions, and make plays. Because for one, it don't take that long for his first and second options to get open. Because he got talent over there. All he got to do is make his reads, and then his legs. I got a lot of faith in Jalen Hurts and a lot of faith in that Philadelphia Eagles team. So that's the team I'm taking to win that game. So I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles and I'm taking the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm confident in my Eagles pick. The Chiefs win is highly dependent on how healthy Pat Mahomes is. If Pat Mahomes ain't healthy, then this not gonna. The Bengals is headed back to the. Bro, I was talking to somebody this week at work. He made me so. He didn't make me mad, but he made me play like he motherfucker. Like he asked me who I was taking between the Bengals and the Chiefs, and I broke it down for him and everything. And I was like, man, I'm taking the Chiefs. He was like, man, you're not taking the Chiefs. I said, bro, I'm taking the Chiefs. He said, bro, you know you're not taking the Chiefs. He said, you know the Bengals winning that game. He said, Pat Mahomes hurt, bro. He said, after everything you just said logically, he said, bro, you taking the Bengals. I said, bro, I know, bro. I said, but I'm taking Pat Mahomes, bro. I said, I have to have faith in my boy. He was like, bro, are you serious, bro? Like, he knew I wanted to take the Bengals, but I ain't doing it. I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm riding with Pat McGoat. With that being said, I appreciate y'all for joining me on another episode of Kicking It with Saint. Tell somebody you fuck with him. Tell somebody you love him. You can be anything in the world. Choose to be kind to somebody today. Saint out.
I got the moves like hot sauce. Lil' mama taking the top off. I'm laying down getting topped off. After this, she know she getting knocked off. I know she loving the money, so I keep on thumbing and thumbing. She say she horny when she taking shots, so I keep them coming and coming. Now I'm putting dick in her tummy. Scoop her up like I'm raking her something. You would think shawty ran track, the way that she running and running. You getting dumber and dumber. You out here chasing the bone. After she finished from giving me dome, the Uber is taking her home. Tight.